right. Okay, technical. All right, so we're going to kick off today's session really talking about from a business process standpoint, what are the scenarios you can be planning, and then what are the 5 tools that you need to be using. Again, my name is Tracy McMullen. I'm with interRel Consulting. I am approaching my 15-year anniversary, which is really exciting, and excited to be here to talk with you guys today. So with that, okay, so what will the coronavirus recession look like? Is there going to be one? I think we're all pretty certain that there will be one. It's just a matter of how big, how small. And you guys read the headlines just like I do every day. And it's definitely scary. So we need to think through for our organizations, what's the impact going to be and how can we plan for it? The first thing that we have to identify is what is in our control and what is out of our control. There are a bunch of things that are out of our control we can't do anything about other than plan for it and identify mitigation strategies to address some of those things. You know, how long is this going to last? April, end of April, I think we heard is kind of the new guidance of when hopefully maybe we're going to be done with this, at least done with the stay-at-home orders, and the virus cases will be trending down. We've heard that from the government, but who knows, right? I think one big lesson learned through this whole process is that this is uncharted territory, and we really don't know for sure. So you guys definitely need to be planning if it's end of April, if it goes through the summer, or even if it lasts longer than that. How expensive is this going to be? You know, and what are the costs and what are the financial impacts? So are consumer spending and behaviors going to change? I know for me personally, I'm sort of ready to jump and get back out there. My husband is kind of more conservative and saying, no, we're going to stay in. Are we really going to go to football games and the mall and the movies? So there's a little bit of unknown of what's going to happen with consumer spending. The unemployment rates we have seen over the last couple of weeks significantly increasing. So what's that going to do to the economy? You know, access to credit, the government stimulus package. So there's a lot of different factors involved when it comes to and the revenue that we're able to obtain, you know, and the cost that we're going to incur. Again, what is the government going to do? Again, we've seen the stimulus package announced, which hopefully will provide some relief for us, at least for 2 months. And again, there's different measures, whether you're a small business or a large organization or enterprise. But what is the government going to do and continue to do? And is that going to be enough to help us through this, you know, this new normal, this unprecedented time that we're going through? So what we need to be doing with all of those unknowns is scenario planning. And if you read a lot of the information out there, there's a lot of different scenarios that people are talking about, best case, worst case, V-shaped, I'm hoping for a V-shaped scenario, U-shaped, L-shaped, quick recovery, global recession, so a lot of different terms out there. And what we've done is we've just tried to kind of do some research and see what some of the kind of business experts out there are recommending. Bain & Company has 3 scenarios that they're recommending that you guys plan for. So missed plan, severe downturn, and liquidity crisis. McKinsey started with 3 scenarios, and that was really exciting at the beginning: quick recovery, slowdown, and pandemic and recession. And I think we have all realized it's probably not going to be a quick recovery. So now they've switched and are recommending a delayed recovery and prolonged contraction. And again, we have the links to these websites and these sources. So if you'd like to read some more information kind of on their thought process behind these scenarios, you have that information available to you. Morgan Stanley also had 3 scenarios that they're recommending companies plan for. And then there's another education organization, Brookings, that have a very detailed white paper on seven different macroeconomic impact scenarios that you can plan for. So taking all of that into account, we've kind of summarized what we think are the 3 scenarios that you should be modeling: a quick recovery, delayed recovery, and prolonged contraction. And you can see kind of the curves that go along with each one of those scenarios. So the quick recovery, definitely kind of that V shape that we are all hoping for. That's the pink line, the delayed recovery curve, which is the blue line, and the prolonged contraction, which is the green. So first, let's talk about the quick recovery. So from the quick recovery scenario, this is where our new case counts of coronavirus hopefully will end by the end of April. The growth in the number of cases is going to be slowing due to the restricted travel that we're doing, due to the social distancing and the stay-at-home actions that we are all taking. The testing capacity increases. We've seen that step up. And so folks are able to identify and then again stay home and hopefully be treated if they have the coronavirus. It's this scenario is also where this really turns out to be kind of a seasonal virus, sort of like the flu. So when we start to warm up and summer comes, hopefully the virus will decrease, and or we discover some medicines that are going to help treat this virus. In this scenario, consumer and business spending is dropping really just for the single quarter, this immediate time frame, but then can return to normal fairly quickly. So from a timeline standpoint, and this is where you kind of can start thinking through how you plan your scenarios, you'd plan for a 1 quarter decrease, 1 quarter to get back to normal. And it's really more of a kind of manageable disruption to our operations. And then finally, some of the mitigation strategies that you guys are likely going to be taking in this scenario, some creative solutions to address the revenue drop that you're facing. So I know a lot of customers shifting, if there's a way to shift to virtual services or online services, restaurants switching to delivery, what are some of the creative solutions you can have to mitigate some of the revenue impacts that we're having? You may be creating short-term furlough programs for employees. You definitely want to still be looking at your supply chain and if there's going to be impacts coming down from your suppliers, looking to conserve cash. And then you want to not only think defensively, and how are we going to survive and what can we do immediately, but also be thinking offensively. This may be a time where you can gain market share, and maybe get a competitive edge over your competitors. Now, in the delayed recovery scenario, this is where the new case counts really extend through the summer. So we have an extended quarantines and travel restrictions, and or testing capacity is still not readily available to everyone. In this scenario, consumer and business spending is going to drop through 2 quarters, which is essentially a recession. The unemployment levels continue to rise, and we start to see some businesses failing, unfortunately, and which will eventually put pressure on our financial systems. So in this delayed recovery, you're really looking at a 2 quarter decrease, 2 quarters to get back to normal. And it's definitely going to have a big impact on your P&L and your margin. And this is where you really have some uncontrollable operational disruptions. From a mitigation standpoint, this is where you're taking more aggressive strategies to try and help revenue and address costs. Potentially, you're suspending some of your operations, really doing some aggressive cost reductions, still looking to conserve cash, and again, thinking defensively and offensively as well. In prolonged contraction, this scenario is where really the virus extends through the end of the year. We don't find some treatments or medications. We're still under travel quarantines and restrictions. Really, high impact distress for our financial systems, just being able to support all the economic slowdown that will be occurring. Higher employment levels, and we really don't begin to see a recovery until Q2 2021. So the timeline here in this scenario is a 2 quarter decrease, 2 quarter minimal change, and then we've got a really slow rise the last 4 quarters. So really we're looking at a long-term decline in revenue, negative cash flow risks, and really business viability concerns. So your mitigation here is going to be much more drastic in this situation. You potentially will be stopping underperforming areas, closing down certain operations. I recently heard, the oil and gas industry is facing some really difficult challenges, not only due to coronavirus, but due to some of the pricing wars that are going on with Saudi Arabia and Russia, and that there are some independents that are plugging wells, which is sort of unheard of, in order to face the decreasing prices and the overwhelming supply that we have. So you're likely going to see things that you never would have considered before that you may have to be doing in this more drastic scenario. Reducing operations, conserving cash, and in this scenario, you're likely thinking survival mode, right? That's going to be the main focus of getting through this time. So those are the three scenarios. So within those three scenarios, there are 5 measures or 5 levers that you should be planning for. The ones that are going to have the most impact, or 95% of the impact on your net income. This is where you focus and kind of when in doubt, focus on your cash and your liquidity. So you definitely want to be focusing on your volumes and what's going to happen with your volumes and planning different scenarios there, sales and revenue. Looking at your costs. So what are variable costs that are going to go down with your units, and is there a way to maybe even further reduce kind of that variability? Fixed cost. So if your revenue is going down and your fixed costs stay the same, you're going to have net income margin issues. So if there's ways to reduce some of those fixed costs. Looking at your compensation expense, which for most companies is one of the largest parts of the P&L. Are there ways to mitigate that particular expense? And then of course, supply chain is going to be super important for you to be able to contain. If you're not able to get the supplies you need to deliver the products and services that you have, that's obviously going to be a big problem. Cash and liquidity is going to be important, and do you have working capital to kind of support your organization? And then looking at your capital expenditures as well. So definitely looking at all of these elements within the different scenarios within your forecasts and your plans is what's going to be needed in your scenario planning. So how far should the models go out? So absolutely near term is critical. Long term is going to be important as well. But what I want you guys to do is definitely focus on the timeliness. So you want to be very agile, be able to turn around scenarios very quickly and changes very quickly. I feel like every day we're getting new information, things are changing. So you want to be able to have a flexible scenario model solution that you can be able to update information, update drivers, and very quickly turn around an updated model. So definitely 2 months out, absolutely looking to the next 2 years, but potentially, and we'll have to see kind of in that protracted in the prolonged contraction scenario, really looking out potentially to a longer impact as well. We talked about the 3 scenarios. So there are 3 scenarios: the quick recovery, delayed recovery, and prolonged contraction. That kind of are the macro scenarios that you guys should be planning for. Within those scenarios, you're going to have different versions. So you're going to want to, and these are more what if scenarios, so that you can take a look at the financial impact. If, let's say, you implement a 10% furlough program and your revenue drops 50%. Or maybe another version is, what if we have to do 15% of layoffs and not furloughs, and we do 40% drop in revenue, and maybe we actually have a little bit of gain in online revenue. So really thinking through the different assumptions and different versions, and if we took this particular action, what's the financial impact, and does that help or does that hurt? So being able to tangibly see what you think is going to be the result of some of these mitigation plans that you have. So now that we know the 3 scenarios, what are the tools that you can use to help battle the coronavirus for your business? As I mentioned, timeliness over precision. All the tools that I'm going to talk about today focus on speed. So you want to get the right information to the right people at the right time so that they can make better decisions faster, which is more important than ever before. So what we need to do too is really focus on not only on the timeliness, but worry a little bit less about the precision. The more precision, the longer it's going to take. And right now we don't have time. So definitely focus on timeliness over precision. Dwight Eisenhower had a quote that I think is helpful for folks to kind of understand this process and why it's super important. I've always found that plans are useless, but the planning process is indispensable. So it's more about thinking about the process than it is like the details and the numbers. So being able to, again, have tangible actions and then understanding the impacts of those tangible actions. So again, planning for a lot of different scenarios, you've got those scenarios in place. So if something happens, you're ready to execute and move forward. So the 5 tools that are going to be helpful for you in this Corona time and really any times of change is scenario planning tools. So again, kind of the main process that we've been talking about, what are the scenarios that are possible? How will we deal with them? And then, you know, what are the impacts? So scenario planning, I'm certain everyone's forecast at this point and everyone's budget or original plans are totally out of date at this point. So you definitely want to have a tool that allows you to update those forecasts and scenarios. Again, be able to create alternate scenarios, alternate versions. Here you see a screenshot of the EPM cloud. Which is what interRel uses for our scenario planning. And what you want to do is determine, you know, the 2 to 5 scenarios that are most likely, which we've discussed, and then plan those 5 levers that we talked about, all of those different elements to see the financial impact, and then use those to derive your financial forecast. So again, using tools, hopefully that I know a lot of the customers here on the call likely already own. So if you have Planning Cloud or you have on-premise Hyperion Planning, you have a tool and you likely already have an application set up that you can very easily layer in and add in some scenario planning capabilities. What's great about Planning Cloud, you can use Excel, you can use the web UI, and very easy to add in some high-level business rules to apply some of those macro scenario assumptions to existing plans and forecasts, and then be able to quickly update and report and analyze and slice and dice the information. Also, for folks, maybe you don't have Hyperion Planning or Planning Cloud, but you have native Essbase. Essbase works too, and again, really powerful tool for taking your financial impact. We take our updated actuals, we can take our forecasts and plans, and then add in these assumptions, build in some high-level calculations to quickly spit out results for different what-if scenarios. If you have OAC Essbase or Essbase 19C, there's actually a feature called Scenario Management that has some built-in features to do some of the things that we're talking about. Glenn Schwartzberg posted a briefing on our IFN website. So if you go to interrel.com and then click on IFN, under the interRel briefings, you can get more details on using the Essbase scenario management feature. So again, use tools that you have that it can be central repository to do the scenario planning, to very quickly run calculations, driver-based, or apply assumptions to update existing plans. The other thing that's great about both of these solutions is you have security enabled, because some of the stuff may be confidential, so you can apply security if there's certain folks that really want to keep contained to these different scenarios. You have the ability to layer in security filters and meet security requirements through this process. Another tool that is a powerful tool in times of change is strategic modeling. So what is the kind of strategic modeling, long-range planning requirements that you have? So this is another tool. It is a solution that Hyperion Strategic Finance was the on-premise version of this tool that now comes with Planning Cloud. So you're able to use it, and it really is complementary to your planning solutions. And what it does is it provides a more aggregate way of planning the impact for your strategic plans. So it's a little bit long range. A lot of times it's taking it more up to an aggregate level to help you model your best case and your worst case scenarios, and then pull in constraints like debt covenants, M&A activity. So in this particular case, you may be looking to, if we divest a certain business, what's the financial impact of that? How does that help us from a cash perspective? So similar solution, you can do similar things in your on-premise Hyperion Planning or Planning Cloud solution, but this one's kind of specifically designed to do scenario modeling, strategic modeling at a macro level. So this will be another tool in your tool belt that you can use to help manage change. Profitability and cost management. So what are my least and most profitable products, customers, services, locations? So this is another tool. There is an on-premise version called HPCM, Hyperion Profitability and Cost Management. And I'm talking about Oracle solutions right now. There's also Profitability and Cost Management Cloud. The benefit of this tool and why you want to use this tool is helping you to understand which, again, customers, products, channels, services are your most profitable. And the reason why you want to know that is that's where you need to focus your attention. So where you're finding the most profitability, that's where your resources, your attention should be in these times of change. And if you don't know the answer to that, you could be spending time on things that aren't really going to really drive impact to the bottom line. The other thing that is helpful with PCM that you can use is, again, in the scenario modeling that we talked about, both with Hyperion Planning or S-Base, with strategic modeling, those are going to be at higher levels. We talked about we want it to be fast, higher level, so that you can really make changes and understand things at a higher level, but you can actually use profitability and cost management to allocate things down to a lower level to see kind of a more granular view of some of those scenario plans that you have in place. So a powerful tool, again, and what's great with new Oracle Cloud solutions is it comes with your enterprise subscription. Again, these types of products sometimes can be super complicated and long, and these times of change, you keep it super simple, but really get something up and running very quickly to help you see your true profitability so you know where to focus your time and energy. Data visualization. How can I get the right information to the right people? So data visualization is very important in helping you see trends, issues very quickly. So self-service solution that you can connect to various different sources to kind of understand what's happening in your business, as opposed to pulling up an Excel spreadsheet that has a ton of numbers. Being able to find trends and patterns in an Excel spreadsheet of numbers is very, very difficult. So you want to have data visualization solutions to help you kind of visually see what's going on. So Oracle has a data visualization solution that's great. It can connect to existing cubes or Hyperion Planning sources in different ways, spreadsheets and other data sources, so that you can visualize information, see trends and impacts, and again, it's more of a self-service end user tool, so you really don't have to have any super technical skills in order to be able to use the solution. The last tool that you want to use in times of change is the narrative reporting feature. So with narrative reporting, this is a cloud solution that Oracle provides. And again, a lot of times we're doing this, but in a very manual process. We're adding narrative and commentary to the financial numbers, the numbers that we're presenting in reports. So what the solution does is allows you in a central repository, a collaborative environment for adding narrative commentary on the coronavirus. So giving context to the numbers, explaining the narrative, explaining the assumptions, all in a central cloud solution, which is going to be important because your numbers are going to be drastically different, and everybody understands they're going to be drastically different, but why, but how? The more detail you give, whether it's on the street to your shareholders, the more comfortable that folks will be and understand, okay, they've got a game plan in place, they understand what's going on with their business, and they've got a game of attack. So this is going to be important when you're reporting information, sharing information, is not only just the numbers and the financial impact, but kind of the explanations and the narrative behind it. So enabling technology is a must right now. I mean, again, if all you have is Excel, you still need to be doing the scenario planning process. But if you have some of these solutions, scenario planning with Hyperion Planning or strategic modeling, profitability and cost management, data visualization, narrative reporting, it's going to make it a much easier, faster process. You're going to be able to generate multiple scenarios, multiple versions much more quickly, and really help you in this time. You know, I always like to put together, well, what tools should I use? You know, if you own Hyperion Planning, Essbase, HSF, you're on-prem world, you have a solution that can help you scenario model very quickly. If you're in the cloud, you have solutions that you can use very quickly. If you're modeling in Excel today, so let's say you don't have Essbase planning, you don't have any of these solutions, you know, if you want to contact interRel or look for Oracle, the cloud solutions you can get up and running very quickly. And depending, you know, I think at that point it's an evaluation point. Do you want to use Planning Cloud or Strategic Modeling for kind of getting up your scenario modeling process? You have a couple of different alternatives to you, but you can turn those around very quickly. And again, narrative reporting, a lot of customers aren't really using this today because it's a fairly new world of narrative reporting, data visualization. There are other tools out there that you likely could be using in your organization, and I definitely recommend you take advantage of them. If you don't have a tool, again, Oracle, narrative reporting and data visualization are great tools to have in your tool belt to help combat, you know, kind of all of the uncertainty that's going on right now. So again, what these tools allow you to do is take action, right? There's going to be immediate cost saving measures that you need to be doing right now. And then there's going to potentially be some extreme cost saving measures that have to take place. You know, you definitely want to look at keeping your customers and keeping their confidence, thinking creatively, and, you know, looking at from a cash flow perspective, is there any accounts receivable optimization you can do to keep the cash coming in the door? What things are you doing from a compensation perspective to, you know, reduce your costs but still keep your employees? You know, what does that involve? Is it a furlough program? Is it layoffs? You know, what are you doing with temporary resourcing? And some of the organizations and businesses that maybe are having resource needs, whether it's the medical industry, grocery stores, where they're actually needing to hire folks. So kind of have been talking, you know, about reducing expenses, but in some cases we're needing to ramp up resourcing and supplies to be able to support demands for some of the fortunate organizations that are seeing some needs in this coronavirus time. Supply chain is going to be super important. So looking at your current inventory, talking with your suppliers, kind of understanding if you're going to have any delays in that chain that could impact your business. And then of course, looking for accounts payable optimization. So you may have been, yep, we pay everything 30 days out, changing some of those, you know, payables agreements with some of the folks that you were paying, and seeing if there's any flexibility there. So looking to optimize some of those things. Of course, reducing travel budget, that's going to be one line item that's kind of an easy forgiven. So again, what we're hoping is these scenarios and these tools are allowing you to very quickly take action to help you see a benefit. Tying those strategies, the different strategies, so that you can see the financial impact, you know, and does it really make that big of a difference, you know, one step versus the other. So before we conclude, we're getting a little bit closer to the end of my time slot. I just wanted to show you kind of an applied example of doing this scenario modeling. So I think a lot of what you guys are likely running into, right, is, and this is an example using Planning Cloud, and it's actually using the financials framework or financials model that comes with Planning Cloud. And what I've done is kind of layered in some scenario modeling logic on top of this application. But most of you guys are loading. We've got our March data. We're going through the close process. And of course, we see a big dip in March, right? The data doesn't look good. It's April 1st. We've kind of run our prepare forecast. So forecast is updated with our March numbers. But the other thing that I see is, again, my forecast is totally out of date. So what I need to do is go back through and revise it. We didn't adjust expenses, so we didn't do any cost cutting measures. Maybe we didn't think this coronavirus, we didn't react quick enough, or we didn't think it was going to be as big of an impact as we thought. So we really didn't do anything with the expenses in March. So while our revenue dropped, our expenses were very high, which resulted in negative net income for March. It was significantly impacted. So we need to do something for April and start going forward, right? We need to adjust. So here, And again, I've got kind of just walking through the technology piece of that. This is using cloud, where you can see your original plans kind of to current forecast. And again, updated for our forecast, updated for our March, we can see had a negative impact. So we've got these grids and charts and graphs that are kind of visually helping us understand the impact. So then the last piece is just being able to check on cash, right? So in this case, we still have a positive cash flow, but it was lower than expected with the cash coming in the door. And another thing is our cash forecast is definitely totally out of date. So we need to go through. It's time for us to reforecast. It's time for us to scenario plan. So again, what you want to do, again, if you're in the Hyperion planning space or planning cloud scenario, if my demo will turn on, is you definitely want to add in those scenarios. So in my application, I've added in delayed recovery and prolonged contraction. And then I've come into version, and I could use existing versions. In my case, I just added in mitigation 1, mitigation 2. So you can very easily add those in, refresh, and then you're ready to plan and use those. So then the basic steps once you've added that in is we want to just copy over our forecast to a target scenario version, apply some global assumptions. We then want to review and analyze and then add in and adjust our different mitigation plans. So here, what I can do, I created a business rule that allows me to copy over a forecast and then add in, remember we talked about some of those key levers, key adjustments to your scenarios. So I created just a simple rule where I can pick, I'm going to copy my original forecast with my updated March numbers. And then I can enter in my volume reductions for Q2 and Q3. So here, this is kind of our delayed recovery. So really, we're thinking 2 quarters down. And then the second 2 quarters are going to kind of have a slow rise. So maybe we only have a 50% drop. We're going to reduce our average salaries. We're going to reduce the labor rates by 10%. We're going to reduce, I think I reduced one other thing. Yeah, our material expense, we'll look to reduce some of these. And really, I'm just making changes kind of in the first 2 quarters in this particular scenario. So again, there's a lot of different ways to create some really simple rules to kind of do the global adjustments to your entire plan. So here, and I can see then the forecast is updated, and I have my delayed recovery orange line that shows kind of the difference in the change from the original plan and forecast. I can use the same rule. So again, kind of creating some of these rules that can be very dynamic, so you can very quickly update information at a global level. And then at that point, you can then jump into the details in your forms and applications and apply some more granular assumptions. Here, we're gonna, this actually should be going to, oh, this is our delayed recovery. I think I maybe, did I just show this one? Technical difficulty. There we go. All right. Our prolonged contraction scenario. So here, running the same business rule. In this one, I just have the ability to go in and I'm going to apply some different assumptions at a macro level for not only the next 2 quarters, but really throughout to show that more extended scenario. So if we have a 50% drop in revenue for the first 2 quarters, and then a drop we still see a drop from our original plan, 30%. We're going to still reduce our salaries. We're going to reduce labor rates, and it goes through the whole process. So we can adjust these kind of key pieces of information. And run, my demo froze. Okay, so, and then it would come up with a curve, and my demo for some reason is freezing on this one screen. So, but you get the general idea of being able to kind of quickly add in. At that point, what's great about the financials framework So we updated, that's our P&L piece. So then what happens from a cash flow perspective? So original cash flows, likely out of dates. And so the frameworks are designed to, whether you use the indirect cash flow method or you're using the direct cash flow method, this example shows you the cash flow, that we can go in and update our cash flow assumptions. So from a revenue standpoint, we assume we're getting, every 30 days we get kind of 50% of the first, you can see there's a cash flow timing column, so we can update the assumptions. So we get 50% in the first 30 days, and the rest in the remaining amount in the second 30 days. We know that cash flow coming in is actually probably going to be a lot slower in this scenario, so you can go in and you can update the cash flow timing assumptions. So based on, and again, it's all kind of tied together with the financials. So if volumes don't go down, your revenues, that's going to be tied in and applies these cash flow assumptions, so you can get an accurate picture of what the cash flow is like coming in. So you can assign those assumptions. Notice that I'm looking at a particular entity for a particular product for a particular region. You can set the assumptions across your organization. And then you can see kind of the cash flow impact from a source perspective. The next step is the cash flow uses. So this is where we're maybe doing some accounts payable optimization. So if we go in, and for our materials that we're paying out, we historically have just paid every 30 days. And now we're going to change that. We're going to change our payables process, and we're going to extend out and pay really not even in the first 30 days, we're going to pay in the second 30 days 50%. And so extend that out so we can really keep some of the cash coming in. We've worked with some of our suppliers to make this happen. So the big kind of hopefully example that you've seen here through this demo is that with your existing applications, you can likely build in really quick rule scenarios so that you can see your financial impact from a P&L perspective, you can see your cash flow, and ideally kind of have it tied together so that as you update those assumptions, you can really get a good picture, and then again, copy these different versions out to your different mitigation versions so you can compare those side by side to help you make decisions. So with that, the Harvard Business Review released this quote. So kind of bringing this all together, that once this crisis dissipates, we will see companies fall into one of two categories. There will be those who don't do anything, hoping that a disruption won't ever happen. These are the companies that are taking a highly risky gamble. And then there will be the firms that heed the lessons of this crisis and make investments. These will be the companies that are going to be the winners in the long term. So what we're hoping to do within today's virtual conference is kind of give you the tools to help you guys be one of those companies that are going to be the winners. And again, scenario planning is going to be very important. You likely, all of you guys are already doing that, hopefully, and some tool. And again, hopefully we've shared some of the tools that you can use that can really accelerate that scenario planning process. So with that, I will conclude my session, the 3 scenarios, the 5 tools to survive and thrive during times of change. I do think that we'll have, again, some of this content that I covered, Edward did in an IFN briefing and 2 different briefings. And then, so those are available on the interRel website. So if you kind of want to rewatch, and if you want to hear Edward's take, because I kind of present sometimes things a lither bit differently. He always does an amazing job. So I definitely recommend you guys checking out his briefings. The other briefings that go along with this session. So if you'd like more information, more examples, how would I use data visualization? How can I build this in my Planning Cloud application? Either they are already out there or they are coming. We have briefings with details kind of on each one of the tools that you guys can use with some more details, some more applied examples. To give you some context to see, how you can apply it in your environment today. So with that, I will conclude. Thank you guys so much.